Hey, good morning. We are talking today about banishing burnout. So this has been a topic that's come up and that we've noticed throughout the community. All of you guys have done a great job of getting through the pandemic, and we've really had a lot of community support with that and a lot of businesses that were able to adapt and change. And what we're seeing now and what's kind of been the trend throughout the United States is this concept of burning out. So this was actually 2/3 of workers were reporting that they were burnt out starting in 2019, and that's only increased since the pandemic. So we think that this is a topic that is going to be a big thing for businesses and for employees and entrepreneurs, as well as leaders in the community and leaders in their organizations. So as we move through this, I will talk about what the signs of burnout are, what the symptoms and the effects on businesses in general, why we should be worried about this, and then also some opportunities to be able to go through and be able to figure out how to, from a personal perspective as well as from a leadership perspective, how to address this with our employees and with ourselves so that we can better take care of ourselves and be better advocates for our businesses in the community and create a more thriving environment. So what is burnout? Burnout is actually a little bit of disagreement on what the actual definition is, but the closest definition that I can find, the medical community is kind of still figuring that out, but is a psychological syndrome emerging as a prolonged response to chronic interpersonal stressors on the job. So this is different than anxiety or depression, although a lot of times they can present similarly with some of their symptoms or some of their signs of it. So burnout is basically when you're feeling overwhelmed and like you can't do enough. But at the same time, you feel like you're not doing enough. Like you're still coming to the job day to day, you're still able to perform, but you're dreaming about something else. Like you're dreaming about being anywhere else. Where depression is, or anxiety, if you're having some of these symptoms where you are just not able to function at all, if you can't get out of bed, if you can't do day-to-day tasks, that's something that's different than burnout. And if you're experiencing some of those symptoms, then you're definitely going to want to seek medical opinion and make sure that you're getting checked out for some of those other underlying conditions that may be the cause. So what we're talking about today is just that feeling of overwhelm, that feeling of not being able to do enough, not being able to keep up, and still feeling that pressure that you want to, like you're just not feeling like you're able to perform at the function that you want to. So some of the signs of burnout: lack of motivation, trouble sleeping, you're irritable, everything is annoying to you, you're feeling physically tired, whether you're actually getting a good night's sleep or not, you're just feeling that tiredness. Feeling of hopelessness, is this ever going to end? Is anything ever going to change? Absent-mindedness, you might forget things that you normally would have no problem remembering, if to-do lists or tasks that you're doing, or not being able to focus, kind of having a brain fog. Apathy, you care less. You care less about the people that you're working with. You care less about your customers or the leadership or just your position in general. And nervousness, you don't really know how to deal with the emotions that you're feeling, so you might feel a little bit of anxiety or nervousness. Difficulty concentrating, you're having a hard time focusing for longer periods of time on tasks that you should be doing or on things that you're trying to do. Irrational anger, a lot of times with burnout and with the things is that we're not actually experiencing our emotions, so it's getting suppressed. So it might come out in bursts that you're just getting angry at things and normally wouldn't bother you, or in ways that normally wouldn't affect you before. Increased cynicism or pessimism. So you just don't have that positive outlook on life. If you're talking to people and you're noticing that you're have a negative spin on things a lot, or you're taking a negative perspective, or maybe you talk to your close friends and you say, are you noticing a change in my overall mood? If you're typically an optimistic person, you might be just having a hard time seeing that optimistic side. And a sense of dread, again, is this going to end? Is this just keep going? Where is the end of this? And then depression can also be a sign of burnout. But again, if you're feeling medical depression, then that's something that you want to talk to a provider about. And the effects on the body. So burnout has a lot of effects that can physically manifest. So even though it's considered more of an emotional issue, it has effects that will actually present themselves physically. So high blood pressure, which can increase your risk of heart disease. Frequent colds and infections, your immune system is being suppressed, so you're more likely to get sick. Weight gain or loss. If your appetite is changing, then you might experience sudden weight gain or loss. Insomnia, premature aging, anxiety, depression, headaches, problems with digestion, or having some stomach issues, things like that can all be physical signs of burnout on your system. And what causes burnout? So burnout can happen at any point in time. And as I mentioned, like 2/3 of employees had experienced burnout in a survey that they did in 2019. So that can be caused by unfair treatment by coworkers, managers, or customers. If you're not being treated well, and then you're having to still show up and try to care, it becomes harder and harder to be able to do that. Unmanageable workload. If you're being expected to do way too much, that's a recipe for burnout. Lack of role clarity. You're not sure what you're supposed to be focused on or what your role is in the company. Lack of communication and support. If you're talking to other people and you're not sure on what you should be doing, or if you're not getting the support that you need to be able to perform the way that you need to. And unreasonable time pressure. So this is, again, having to try to do too much in too short of a time. And the pandemic really kind of elevated all of this. So all of these things that were happening before are now just continuing to go up. The blurred boundaries between work and personal. A lot of workers went remote or did some kind of, where some aspects of their jobs may have been remote, or they are working extended hours, or they're filling in for people when there's lack of staffing and they're having to work extra hours. So there's this blurred boundaries between work and personal. They're being expected to answer phone calls and emails on off work time, and there's not that separation. And then this effect of prolonged stress. So what they noticed during the pandemic was that typically what you'll see is when people are experiencing stress or things that are happening with it, what they'll see is that work will actually decrease. So it's got that relationship, whereas the issues kind of raise, the workload will go down. And what they noticed during the pandemic was that the opposite was actually true. So as all of the effects of the pandemic were happening, and as we were having to pivot, as we were having to do more and have all of this extra additional stress, we had a real sense of resiliency. So people really stepped up to the plate, and a lot of times the work actually increased. So people felt this sense of responsibility, this sense of kind of this social, we're in this together, and they actually increased their work and their output. But what they're noticing now is that because of this, it's long term. So that state can only be sustained for a short amount of time. We weren't made to be able to be in this chronic state of stress. So typically we should feel the stress and then it'll go away. And what we're experiencing right now is that this is just prolonged. And so now all of that is kind of coming to a head, and people are just spent. They have been working so hard in conditions that have not been favorable, and even outside factors. So personal health issues that you may have around your family life, trying to have conversations or information with your partners or your kids, if you're having to work with teachers, or a lot of us were homeschooling or doing things like that during the pandemic. So all of this is kind of coming to a head, and people are just feeling it now. So they kind of pushed it aside and just managed through, and now it's really coming to a head. And burnout in the workplace. So how it manifests in the workplace, and what you might notice if you are either for yourself or for other people in the organization, is a failure to meet deadlines. They're just not able to meet deadlines in the way that they used to. A lower commitment to the organization. People that were more actively engaged in the organization are just not as committed to it. There's more absences. There's a higher turnover rate. There's decreased engagement, increased pessimism, less patience. People are just, they're pulling themselves back from the organization, and they are it's a self-preservation mode at this point. So if you're noticing these things in your workplace, that might be a sign that there is a burnout culture in your organization. And the effects on business. So we've talked about the physical effects, and we talked about what might happen for the individual businesses. So if employees are less engaged and less motivated, if you're having higher turnover rates, if you're having all those things, that's going to have an effect on your business. even from the perspective, if you're keeping the people that you have, but they are working at a reduced capacity, or they are not as focused, if they are not as invested in it, or even you as an individual, if you own your own organization, if you're not able to focus, if you don't have that drive, it can have an effect on your business itself. And then overall, it's estimated that the cost of the U.S. economy from stress and burnout is $500 billion. And that we have 550 million workdays each year that are lost due to stress on the job. So that might be mental health days. That might be people are getting sick because their immune systems are compromised, so they're having to take more days off. And then burned out employees are a little over 2.5 times more likely to be actively seeking a different job. So we are already in a staffing shortage at this point in time. If you have good workers, you're going to want to keep them. And if you have burned out employees, they're 2.5 times more likely to be seeking a different job. They're 63% more likely to take a sick day and 23% more likely to visit the emergency room. So those are all going to have effects on your employees themselves and on the culture that you're doing, and even just staffing. But it can also impact health insurance or healthcare costs and things like that as well. So burnout is caused, and we're going to talk a little bit about the stress cycle. So this is something that typically we would go through and we'd be able to just maneuver through it. So a stressor comes up, evolutionary speaking, we see a lion over in the grass, we either fight or flight, and we go and we run and we escape, we take action, and then we get freed and we arrive back in our village and the lion is gone and we celebrate. And isn't that great? And we have this whole cycle. So the cycle of stress is you have the trigger. So there's something that is causing the stress. Then your internal appraisal is how you interpret that event. So for instance, you're stuck in traffic or you're on your commute, and then you're internally praising that and saying, oh, this is stressful, like this is anxiety provoking, which causes that physiological response, so that fight or flight response. And then you're internalizing that. So you're noticing that fight or flight response, but it's not the same type of stressor where you can just go and fight or flight. Like you can't take that action. So then you're noticing your stress response to it, and then you're worried about it, or you're getting anxiety about the response in general. Like you can't, because of the inaction, you can't do something about it. Then you aren't able to get down to that stage of coping. So you don't get to the point of being able to actually be able to get past the stress response itself and be able to move on to coping. So the really important part here is to complete that cycle, because once you complete that cycle, then you're able to kind of distance yourself from the feelings that you're feeling of that stress cycle and of that stressor. So there's a lot of things that you can do because you can, the good news is that you can actually complete the stress cycle without removing the stressor. So even though you're not able to stop your commute, you can actually deal with your stress response while that stressor is still present and be able to complete that cycle. And there's some ways that you can do that. So breaking the cycle of it and then making sure that we are getting out of that suspension of that stress response being maintained. And some of the ways that you can do that is movement. So once you get through a stressful situation, if you're able to take a few minutes to take a walk, go for a jog. You know, if you're into exercise and do something like that, move your body, have a little dance party on your own and put up some music that you enjoy. Moving your body and really getting the physical sensations out or getting the sensations out physically is really great for that. Breathing, you could take a few minutes and just take a few deep breaths, and that activates the parasympathetic system, and that'll actually reduce the stress response. You can also do meditation or mindfulness practices at this point. Social, get with people that you enjoy, that you want to be around, be able to have a good time and communicate, and just be able to have that connection that can also oftentimes kind of help to complete that cycle. Laughter, and this is something that can absolutely affect us and close that cycle down, but it has to be real, it has to be genuine. So finding something that you can enjoy or that really just makes you have that big belly laughs is, again, it's going to complete the cycle for you. Affection, 20-second hugs with somebody that you love, or somebody, a friend, or a coworker that you're close to, and if you can do that safely, that can help to activate those calming sensations and those hormones that are going to put you into a better state. And then creativity. If there's something that you can find that you enjoy doing, whether that's drawing, whether that's doing a musical instrument. It doesn't have to be an artistic type of creativity either. It can be developing something for your business or thinking through a problem that you might have that would bring you enjoyment, and being able to direct that energy towards a creative pursuit. There's also some things that we can do to foster more of that feeling in a general day-to-day, so we don't have those big peaks of the stress cycle. And doing some long-term change. So doing some regular practices can help to keep you more centered. So in a general way, your base level is much higher and able to handle that stress when it comes. So some of the things that help and that have been shown to improve overall well-being is reconnecting with nature. Get outside, soak up some fresh air. If you're able to leave the office for a few minutes and just take a walk, or be able to go on a hike or sit by a stream, water is really a really good way to be able to reconnect with nature and being able to get that groundedness. Increasing your awareness. So just noticing throughout the day, I'm noticing that I'm feeling this way, or I'm noticing that I'm thinking this certain way when that person says that. And that's really kind of triggering to me. Why is that? Getting a little curious and just kind of noticing your thoughts as you're having them can bring a more awareness. And that can help you to be able to identify and be able to catch those stressors earlier. Intentional rest. So pauses during the day. Can you take 5 minutes in between customers? Can you take a 15-minute break to just really unwind during the day? And getting enough sleep at night. So sometimes we might be up, and a lot of times when we are under stress, what we tend to do is numb out. So we might watch too much TV, we might scroll on social media, we might have a couple drinks after work to just unwind. But that's just kind of a Band-Aid over it. So doing things that you can intentionally set yourself up so that it's really healing and restorative to your body, rather than just numbing and just avoiding the stressfulness. Practicing gratitude, focusing on the things that are going well. And people say all of these things, and it's really easy to say, oh, you should just relax. You should just practice gratitude, or you should just breathe. And it's easy to know that, but to actually take the time to do activities like this is going to make those changes. So you actually have to take the action. And then just kind of adapting whatever fits into your schedule and doing that gradually. Setting boundaries. So if you are having some of those blurred areas where there is no distinction between personal time and work time, if you're an entrepreneur and you're doing it all, and you're available at all times for your customers or whatever it is, see if there are ways that you can set some boundaries. I am off at this time. Talk to your supervisor, talk to your leadership, and just try to find ways that you can be more productive by setting boundaries. So a lot of times when we are at the state of having to try to do it all and doing it all the time, we're not actually having those intentional focus periods either. So making sure that you're setting boundaries and creating that to create a more sustainable environment, and that will actually increase the productivity. And then remembering your why. If you're a business owner, if you're an employee, if you are in a leadership position, what is the goal for you? What is the reason why you're there? Are you there for financial stability for your family? Are you there because you believe in the organization? Did you start your business because you wanted to work around the clock? Or did you start your business for a purpose to have more flexibility and freedom, and to be able to have a higher goal for the community or for the customers that you serve? Really connecting to why you're there and the reason that you're doing what you're doing will help to be able to have that bigger picture and be able to, again, keep those stressors in perspective. And so mindfulness can be a great thing. And there's a couple ways that you could do this. So you could do meditations, you could do guided, or just take a few minutes and just breathe. A lot of times people choose to start meditating or do this and say, it's not working. I'm still thinking a bunch of things. I can't stop my mind. And the goal isn't to stop your thoughts, but it is to just kind of take a break and notice them. And so as you're doing it, you'll get better at it. Journaling, get your feelings and your tasks out on paper. Do a brain dump. What is going on? What are all the things, especially when we're dealing with overwhelm? What are all of the tasks that you have that are just running on a loop in your mind? And get them out on paper and then be able to look at it and be able to process that. Additionally, with your feelings, like I am feeling really anxious right now, or I am feeling really sad or fatigued right now. Why is that? And kind of really checking in with those emotions and being able to write it down, and it can give you a different perspective than when you're just thinking it over and just have those loops going. And then those feelings. A lot of people will be afraid to get in touch with the feelings, and especially when you're feeling uncomfortable. And it's said that feelings are a tunnel. So you have to be able to go through them to be able to get to the other side. And a lot of times what we'll do is we'll stuff them down. And we stuff them down and then we don't deal with them. And then they just build up. And so you're not actually solving the problem. But if you're able to take a few minutes and notice, I'm feeling angry right now, and just let that anger be. And then even sometimes checking in, why am I feeling this? Or what does that feeling need? What is it trying to tell me? Why am I feeling anger right now? And just checking in with those feelings and then allowing them to be. So not beating yourself up because you're feeling anger, or not beating yourself up because you're feeling frustrated. But just allowing it and just getting curious about it and then letting it pass. And you can start doing this with small emotions. So you can just kind of notice, even when you're feeling good, oh, I'm feeling good right now. I wonder why that is. Or I'm feeling a little uncomfortable right now, or I'm feeling a little impatient right now. I wonder how that is. And starting with those smaller feelings and noticing that once you accept them and let them be, that they'll oftentimes just release. Then you can start to do that with bigger ones. And burnout is the dirty little secret. So most of us are feeling burnout. Honestly, most people are feeling burnt out right now, and rightfully so. There's a lot going on, but nobody wants to talk about it. So employees don't want to admit that they're feeling burnout. Leaders do not want to admit they're feeling burnout because they feel like that they're supposed to lead this positive perspective on it and not let their employees know that they're feeling burnout. But it just creates this cycle. So the leader's feeling burnout, and then the employees are feeling burnout, and then it just keeps circling and it keeps going around. And then you have a whole culture of burnout in your organization, and nobody is talking about it. And if you're not talking about it, you're not going to be able to solve the problem. So community is key. It's easy to say, do these activities, or take care of yourself, relax, just, self-care and relax, and burnout will just go away. But that's not the case. You can't just relax your way out of burnout. What you need is community. So connecting with friends, having somebody that you enjoy around you, or somebody that you can even just let out those feelings and connect with. Enlisting support, ask for help, have people around you that are willing to support you. You cannot do it all, and you should not be doing it all. And people want to support you. So asking for help and being willing to receive that support. So when somebody is offering some assistance, being willing to be able to let yourself accept that support. And then sharing ideas, connecting with others that are facing similar challenges, and encouraging and supporting each other. So if 2/3 of the people are already experiencing burnout, and we know that we are at a much higher percentage right now, there are other people in your community, there are other people in your organization that are feeling these same ways. And by connecting and sharing and encouraging each other and just talking about it, you can actually start to make momentum to kind of bring that culture away from the burnout and start to feel better again. And leaders can have a really big impact on this. So they have the opportunity to really be able to set this tone and set this culture for their organizations, and to be able to have their organizations be a place where people can talk about it and communicate. So communicating with employees, communicating about projects, but also just communicating, doing check-ins. How are you how's everybody doing today? In a meeting, how's everybody doing today? Checking in with your employees. Hey, how are you doing today? And allowing their employees to be able to have feelings. So having to be a safe spot. If you're a leader and you have employees that are coming to you, allowing them to be able to have some of those feelings and be able to get that out, and not feeling that that is something that's bad or that they should be looked down on for, and being able to just be there. Eliminating productivity drains, meetings, emails, all of the things that we do and the collaborative environments that we have created can sometimes create productivity drains. Does everybody need to be CC'd on that email? Do all of these people need to be involved in this meeting? Does this meeting need to exist? Can it be an email? Can it be a phone call? Can it just be a check-in? Can one person make this decision? Do we need to have 6 people in on this? And being able to eliminate some of those opportunities for productivity drains can allow people to better focus on the areas that they should be focusing on. Be clear on responsibilities. What are the responsibilities and the expectations for the employees? Are they realistic? Do we need to adjust timelines or workloads? A lot of times, highly engaged employees will be the ones that are then given even more work. If you're able to get your work done and you're able to do well, then you'll be given even more work. And then it's just draining on those ones. So making sure that you're setting realistic expectations and clear responsibilities and giving a sense of purpose. What is their role in the company? What is it towards the bigger vision? If you're the entrepreneur, what is your purpose? What is your experience that you want your customers to have? What is the service? What is the product that you're providing? And why are you doing that? Making sure that you have, again, that bigger focus on the why. And then the working conditions are obviously something that you can look at as well. But I feel like a lot of businesses will go straight to the working conditions. It's the salary. It's the benefits. It's maybe we need to have a happy hour or something. And those are all great things, but we really need to have some of these bigger things intact too and in place. Because if you're just focusing on these outer ones, you're still going to have that disconnect with the employees, and they're still going to have that sense of not being able to communicate it and really let people know what's going on. And the effect that we would have if we create these cultures where employees and employers are able to have the opportunity to communicate, to be able to engage, to be able to create the momentum, is that you're going to have more focus. You're going to have people that are really engaged in the organization again. You're going to have renewed energy and ideas. The employees are going to be happier, which is going to lead to less turnover. It's going to be easier to get employees at companies where the culture is positive. Nobody wants to work at a company where everybody's complaining and everything's negative all the time. And that can have an improvement on the bottom line. So more focus and productivity will lead to better results. The more creativity that you have, you can come up with different ideas and different solutions. And you can really tap into the strengths of your people and the strengths of, if you're doing it on your own personal strengths, and be able to make those changes and focus on the bigger things that are really improving the bottom line of the company, rather than getting caught up in all of the little stuff and the day-to-day. So in conclusion, if you're feeling burnt out or burnout setting in, and if you feel demoralized and exhausted, it's best for the sake of everyone to withdraw and restore yourself. And the point really is to have that long-term perspective. So you want to look at the long-term for you personally, for your health and for your community and for your organization. And a lot of times I feel like if we feeling burnout, we think that just changing the situation. So I just need to quit my job, or I just need to stop this project, or I just need to do this, which can, and sometimes you may need to, but also putting in these practices to put yourself in a better position and deal with the stress while it's there. Because some of the things we don't have control over, but that'll put you in a better place to be able to make those decisions from sound a place, and then to also be able to have a higher capacity to be able to deal with stress as it comes and those outside factors. So that was some information on burnout. I hope that was helpful for you. And if you are looking for support, if you need somebody to connect with, if you want more information, if you're trying to put in these practices and maybe you need some accountability, reach out, let me know, and then I can help to connect you with other people in the community, or work on some ways that maybe you can create more sustainability in your lives and in your work and in your companies, because we want to support you, and we want to support the businesses, and we want to support the community and create this thriving community. So thank you for your time.